morning. My name is Roger Brunswick. I'm the chairman of the Board for Land Use Hearings and Adjustments and the Zoning Board of Appeals for the City of Bonita Springs. I welcome all of you. Robert and Serpy, will you please give us our invocation?
All rights, please.
Okay.
Please guide this board, our city, and our country. Watch over our troops, bring them home safely. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen. And the Pledge of Allegiance, Frank Lyles.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. For those of you standing in the back, there are some seats up front if you'd like to come up front here. We have several seats in the front rows.
What is this?
Forgive me.
Roll call, please.
Chairman Brunswick,
Here.
Wes Norris, Robert and Serpy,
Here.
Mark Nussbaum,
Here.
Pete Pastori,
Here.
Richard Donnelly,
Here.
Frank Lyles.
here.
Very well, thank you. Will you please call the first case?
Yes, the first case is COP 14-14003 BOS, the Harold C. Buck Memorial Post 4254. It's a request for consumption on premises and live entertainment located at 10972 K9 Drive, Bonita Springs, Florida 34135. At this time, I would request the representative from the VFW to come up here to the table, whoever is the applicant. And the custom is if it is an applicant who is not a planner or lawyer, staff will go first. At this time, I'd like to swear in the witnesses and also have them tendered as experts for this case only. Please raise your right hands. I'm going to have the three of you. Sir, can I have you say your name for the record first?
My name is Larry Ellis.
Bill Smith.
And Mrs. Genson, Jackie Genson. Please raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Now, and I'll get the people in the back. And Mr. Dolmer, John Dolmer, also. Mr. Dolmer and Ms. Genson, you've already been tendered as experts in land use and planning. Is that correct? Correct. Thank you. I'm going to now ask people that might be witnesses in the VFW case, and the VFW case only, if you'd raise your right hand. Okay. If I could have you continue raising your right hand. Thank you. You're going to drive me nuts on that one. Okay. We had a lefty up here. I'm just going to ask you to swear or affirm that the testimony you provide, if you decide to provide testimony, is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 folks raising their right hands at this time. Will you please all say aye or yes? Aye. Yes. Thank you. Now, we will ask for you to state your name on the record and that you have been sworn at when we start the case, or at that time if you come up to speak. And I hope you all have turned in a public participant card so that we're able to have your name in the record spelled correctly, your address or email if you want to be notified about the case. If not, that's fine too, but we do like to have the spelling correct. At this time, Ms. Genson is going to begin the case.
My job.
Good morning. For the record, Jacqueline Genson with Community Development. As Ms. Mance explained and read into the record, the VFW is here today before you to request a consumption on premise permit for their outdoor covered pavilion. They are a fraternal club, so their alcohol license type is an 11C club license where they only serve to their membership. Staff did review the request. We recommended approval with conditions. They also requested live outdoor entertainment included in the request because we have been doing those concurrently, for example, with the Promenade and a couple of other properties. However, I just wanted to say up front that we decided together as a group that this is not an appropriate venue or a vehicle to go ahead and ask for that request and do a blanket approval. So there are conditions in the staff report, and they're in agreement for that. So live entertainment will not be part of this request. Just want to go over the conditions up front. In your staff report, we did have some conditions of approval, but we went ahead and modified some. So I wanted to go over those in detail right now with you. Again, they are going for an 11C club, not a 4 COP. They are not a restaurant. They are a fraternal club. So there are different licensing requirements with the state of Florida that allows them to serve alcohol under that license type. So we went ahead and clarified that. The sale of beverages, staff is proposing daily 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Outdoor seating is set by the fire marshal. So that would be Bonita Springs Fire, and they have been in coordination with the fire marshal. This addition is existing. It's not a brand new structure, so they already obtained building permits, set their bathroom occupancy and their seating occupancy already previously with the building official and the fire marshal. So, but this is just a standard condition that we as staff and zoning don't set that occupancy limit. It's set by the fire marshal and the building official. Live outdoor entertainment or amplified music is prohibited unless they obtain a special event permit. The city's noise ordinance, if you want to exceed those limitations, you have to apply for a special event permit, and amplified music is a public hearing request before city council. Staff reviews it and then goes to city council for final approval, and I believe you are limited in the number you can have per year. So the live and outdoor entertainment would still be heard through that process. What's unique about that process is it's a green sheet item that goes before city council. It's not noticed in the paper. No private notifications are sent out. However, VFW and Mediterra met last Friday, and they agreed to go ahead and notify the Mediterra property manager if they were to obtain a special event permit that they would give notice. And staff had recommended that we do at least 15 days prior to. So that was an agreement between the two private parties, and it is a condition as part of this document. What we also did was, normally in these consumption on premises permits, we tie in, okay, if you're going to have music or TVs, let's make it so it's piped in at a conversational level, and we're very sensitive to our neighbors. So this is a condition that you would see normally in a lot of our consumption on premise outdoor applications. The last one is a new condition where this special exception would only be authorized to the VFW. If the property were to sell or another entity were to come in to that space, the special exception would be null and void for the city's purposes, and they would have to come back in and get a new permit in accordance with the alcohol section of the Land Development Code. So those are just some of the new conditions I wanted to go over ahead of time. Just to go over the basics, the future land use classification for this area is industrial. They are located in the Greyhound Industrial Park, which is kind of near the dog track, tucked away south of Bonita Beach Road. Their zoning is C2. It's a commercial classification that has very heavy commercial uses, and they are an existing use. They have been there since 1979 with their indoor operation, serving their membership with non-alcoholic, alcoholic beverages, some limited food service and activities, and they just added the addition in 2010. This is an aerial of the property. Sorry about that. Okay. This is the dog track here. This is Racetrack Road, and this is Canine Drive. And this is the subject property here. Just to give you a synopsis of the surrounding area, this is the Pine Haven condominiums. It's multifamily. This is the Westbrook neighborhood, which is more of your low-density single-family. This is a portion of Mediterra, the Emeroon neighborhood, and then there's some other individual neighborhoods within Mediterra. And then there's some more commercial industrial property to the south and also to the west. This is the site plan. And again, this is for the covered outdoor pavilion. And what's unique about this property is because of the way our design standards are written in our Chapter 3, they had to go through architectural review. So the building, for all intents and purposes, it looks like a building. It's stuccoed. It has windows, but the windows aren't glass windows. They're screen. So it's still considered an outdoor space, even though if they were to put in windows and whatnot, it would be considered indoor. But as it stands now, based on the construction, it is a covered outdoor space. But this is all existing, again, with the addition done in 2010. They have restroom facilities here. There is a bar here right now. Doesn't mean that they serve alcohol. They can also serve non-alcoholic beverages, and it's also a place to convene. And then they have some circular tables with some seating. It's not fixed. It's just they can move it at will. And then it connects into the main part of the facility. This is some site photos, again, as I was explaining. This is the structure here. And you can see if it was glass, it's, for all intents and purposes, it looks like a building that is fully enclosed, but it is not because of the screens. This is the interior. You would see lots of the ceiling fans. It's kind of hot during the summer. Circular tables with the seating. Just to give you some exterior perspective of where the adjacent properties are, I am standing outside the covered pavilion area. This is looking towards Westbrook and Pine Haven. So you can see there's some vegetation, and it's quite a distance far away. And in my staff report, you will see distances measured from these various residential uses. Here, I'm also standing outside of the covered pavilion, and this is the Mediterra community. And they do have a substantial berm and wall already in place and some vegetation. And this is another view from the Pine Haven area. Going over surrounding neighborhood and also the concerns, as I mentioned before, with the aerial, just the various uses in the vicinity. There is residential on two sides, and then the other two sides to the south and west are commercial industrial-like uses. 500 feet notifications were given out as part of this request. That is part of our land development code. If you are requesting outdoor consumption, you must notify property owners within 500 feet. So those notifications did go out. As a result, I did get some phone calls and some email correspondence from some neighbors that were very concerned. Mainly from the Mediterra properties. I have not heard from Pine Haven or Westbrook. But as I stated previously, we did meet with the property manager and one of the HOA Master Association board members last Friday, where they were able to discuss their concerns, and additional conditions were offered as a means for them to work together. So those were some of the concerns. Also in your packet that I gave you this morning, I did give you some email correspondence from two people that are in the El Maroon neighborhood of Mediterra, which would be the properties most closest to the east, with their concerns. And mostly it's hours of operation. They're concerned about noise. But again, right now, even if they were not requesting alcohol, they'd have to abide by the city's noise ordinance regardless. All properties have to abide by the city's noise ordinance. So for justification for approval of the request, this is a C2 zone property. It's for a fraternal club. Both uses are permitted by right in the C2 zoning district. However, because the outdoor portion, if you will, is within 500 feet of residential, they had to obtain special exception approval for the expansion of this licensed area. They've been an established club in the city since 1979 with the addition in 2010. They created this new area because some of the new smoking laws would affect how they can service their membership, and the applicant can go into that in a little more detail. Live entertainment is not permitted as part of this request. It would still fall under the city's noise ordinance and the city's special event permit program. And staff had the recommendation of hours from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So with that, I do have members of the VFW that are here to also elaborate on their club and the request. And if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer.
Very good. Would like to call those members of the VFW to the podium, and please state your name.
Good morning. My name is Phil Smith. I live in Bonita Springs, and I'm here promoting the application for special exception. I'm a retired attorney from Indiana, but first and foremost, I was a Marine in Vietnam and a proud member of the Veterans of Foreign Wars. Jackie covered our application very well. I just want to expand on a couple of issues. In 2010, we built the addition to the current building. It was built to be a smoking area in anticipation of a smoking ban. This was done by a prior administration at the VFW and passed by the membership and constructed, and it does exist. But it was a little out of control. It was 3,000 square feet, which was more than was needed for a smoking room. And for some years, it's remained basically vacant with no purpose or design. We have a bar. The bar is not used. We have restrooms, only used when we have meetings out there. And as Jackie indicated, it's too hot in the summertime to do anything with that space. The problem, as I have perceived it, is with the public's acceptance of our application for special exception is the nomenclature that's used. And I understand that outdoor seating is a term of art with zoning. It took me just a little bit to get my head around that. We are not outdoors. We're not constructing a cabana in a field, and we're not going to have Jimmy Buffett out there with electric guitars. I doubt that if this use is granted, that you're going to be able to tell, or our neighbors are going to be able to tell, that there's any difference whatsoever in our operation. We intend to use it in season when the occasion arises. We don't intend to be open every day, although we don't want restrictions. And we want to be able to be trusted to operate under the same rules and guidelines as any other person or organization in the state or the county. The other point I want to make is that alcohol is not our main drive here, and I think that that might be a perception the public has. The alcohol consumption is secondary to the use of the building. The building will be more versatile if we can serve alcohol at the bar. So our main purpose is to have a usable space. To use that space for the VFW means that we will be having membership drives, and we will be having things that promote what we stand for. It's not just a bar. The music is almost a non-issue. It's secondary to the alcohol permit, and the alcohol permit is secondary to the need to have the usable space. So that being said, we are under roof, we have open windows, and that makes us outdoor seating. We did meet with representatives of Mediterra. When I had heard that there were concerns, I said to our commander, let's get a hold of them. Maybe they just don't know what we're all about, and invite them to come see the space. And they were gracious enough to accept that invitation, and we did have that meeting with members of the zoning staff and a few of us members of the VFW. And while we had anticipated a problem, we were actually disarmed by the congeniality and the amicable nature of the meet. All Mediterra wanted, or these representatives of Mediterra, was that we be good neighbors, that we obey the sound ordinance, and that we not disturb their way of life. And we gave them that assurance. To be usable, to have a usable space, and to be functionable the way that we want it, we have to be open sometimes at 8 o'clock, perhaps if members or guests want to have a Bloody Mary with their breakfast, we want to be open at 8. If we have something going on at 8 o'clock at night, we don't expect to have to be shut down at 8 o'clock if we're not making any noise? What have we hurt? We simply want to be treated like everyone else. We're not special because we're veterans, but we are equal to everyone else. If you join the Moose, you're not a Moose. If you join the Eagles, you're not an Eagle. But if you're a member of the VFW, you're a veteran of foreign wars. It's a unique membership, and all we ask is that respect. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We have another speaker on behalf of the VFW, and then after that, we'll have time for public comment.
Good morning. My name's Larry Ellis. I'm the commander at VFW Post 4254 here in Bonita Springs. The comments that I have relate to our space and our ability to utilize and give our members increased service. Thus, the potential is there for increased membership. That increased membership gives us the reasonable ability to earn more money. And as you know, we're a nonprofit organization. What we do with those funds after we pay our expenses is we contribute to veterans' causes, veterans in distress. We have by charter, are charged with establishing a relief fund for that purpose. We also are very active in the community. We deal and contribute to many community projects and charities. And we hope you recognize this, and we'd like indeed to maximize the opportunity to earn that income so that we can increase our involvement in those activities with veterans in distress and also deserving community projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a question. Mr. Nussbaum?
Mr. Ellis, approximately how many members do you have?
We
in
have
this-
300 and just over 350 regular veteran members. We have 180 ladies auxiliary members, and we have approximately 100 men's auxiliary members. Total well over 600 members.
And if there's people visiting who are VFW members from another state, they can use the facilities as
They're
well?
VFW members, yes. Now, we, under the 11C licensing, we are permitted to have members' guests come in. However, our members purchase whatever alcoholic beverages those folks are going to consume.
What are the current hours of operation?
They vary depending on the occupancy of the place at the time. We open normally at 8 o'clock in the morning. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but I think we open at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we don't exceed, what, in the evenings? 2 a.m. However, that's not a normal situation. We're normally closed well before that.
So this exception would be a little more restrictive for you?
Yes, sir, it would. That's one of the reasons we'd like consideration for a 10 p.m. closing time outside. You know, according to our VFW manual of ritual and responsibilities, as the commander, I'm charged with seeing that our post conforms to all local regulations, laws. That's my responsibility, as well as the other officers. And we understand the noise ordinance, and we, as we've assured our neighbors at Mediterra, we will comply with that.
Thank you.
And just one more question.
Yes, sir.
It says that the seating is limited by Bonita Springs Fire and Rescue.
That's correct.
Do you know what that number is for the outside area?
199 in the outside area?
The pavilion.
In the pavilion,
In the pavilion, okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question
Yes,
for you,
sir.
sir. The hours of operation, as you may be aware of what's been proposed by staff, is 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
We understand that, yes.
You understand that?
Yes, yes. We, in the meeting we had with staff and also with the Mediterra folks, And of course, there's a representative from Mediterra here today who I'm sure will be heard. But we, ourselves at the VFW and our neighbors, the Mediterra HOA general manager, and they had another representative there also, pretty much we agreed that they had no problem with 10 p.m. But we understand staff's recommendation also.
Thank you.
Okay?
Any other questions? I have, the only question that I have is, with the sale of alcohol, with the 8 to 8 recommendation by staff for the outside serving of alcohol, you'll still be serving up till 2 a.m. inside.
That's correct.
Do you close the outside area after 8 o'clock, and you don't permit any alcohol service out there, but will your members be allowed into that outside area with alcohol after the 8 o'clock hour?
I would assume if we're not selling it after the closing time, you're going to have to tell me.
Well, you are selling it inside, though, at that
That's
point,
correct,
right?
yes, yes.
Okay, and that's, I guess, my concern or question.
Jacqueline Genson, for the record, the permit is for consumption of alcohol, so it's the act of consuming the beverage outside, so.
Outside after 8, so they could, even though they can, so they're going to have to monitor their
Yes,
their
their membership
members
to not to
and
take the
guests
liquor outside.
from not taking their drinks outside. Okay.
You know, this, I guess, you know, this bothers me a bit. You know, it's like me sitting on my lanai, not bothering anyone, consuming a cocktail, and my neighbor coming out and telling me, hey, it's 8 o'clock, get in the house, you know?
Yeah, I understand, but we have neighborhoods that we have to understand the
We certainly do, and that's why
greater
we,
residential.
yes, sir, and we intend to conform to the noise ordinance.
Okay, that's fine, thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask for public comment. If you wish to speak for or in opposition to this this ordinance, would you want to step forward now, please? Anybody wishing to speak for or opposed to the? I have one gentleman coming forward. Good morning, sir.
Good morning,
Would you
gentlemen.
please state your
My
name?
name is Jay Murphy. I live in Bonita Springs, Florida.
You've been sworn?
I've been sworn. I'm a life member of the VFW. Up until a couple weeks ago, I served as chaplain at the VFW. I'm still chaplain of the American Legion. Like these guys here, I'm a Marine. Fought in Vietnam, killed, carried out bodies. Still have bad dreams. But if I have a little chance to socialize with some of my fellow veterans, take some of the edge off. That's one of the benefits of having a VFW. We can have some socialization. I have some parties over at my house every once in a while, out in the patio, and I don't close the place up at 8 o'clock. Russ Winsett was going to be here this morning, but Russ wasn't feeling too good. He survived Pearl Harbor. And he said, tell you gentlemen that the only noise he can make after 8 o'clock is when he whistles at a pretty girl. And if you know Russ, you know that's the truth, too. But having served as a chaplain, one night after 8 o'clock, one of my friends who was Army Vietnam, he wasn't feeling too good. He's been sick for a while. Went over and said a prayer with him. It was probably about 9:30, going to 9:45. He died that night. We did a service for him. Roy Daniel, you know him. But I had a chance to pray with him, not being loud, and if it was outside at the pavilion, it would have been after 8 o'clock. All I'm asking to do is say, hey, these guys are combat veterans. Every one of us has received a medal from the United States government. We can be trusted to be quiet and behave up until 10 o'clock. After that, we'll go to bed. Thanks.
Thank you. Would anybody else wish to come forward to speak for or in opposition to this issue? Seeing none? What do we do next? Seeing none, then I would like to, one more question over here.
Jackie,
Nussbaum.
you mentioned the buffering, so in your opinion, you think the buffering is adequate between the VFW post and Mediterra, Eastbrook, and Pine Haven? And
Oh, definitely. As long as they are within the limits of their noise ordinance and they are actively monitoring their membership, just like any establishment. I mean, with the hours given, and maybe the board wants to consider doing a hybrid. Maybe during the week you do one set of hours, and maybe on the weekend you consider another set. And we always, as the city, have the ability to revocate a permit if they're not complying with the resolution and the conditions of approval for any alcohol permit within the city.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. Addressed it to the VFW.
Mr. Inserpi,
Yes.
go ahead, please.
Allocating time till 10 p.m., is this something that you've got something going on in the pavilion 7 days a week, or is it just on weekends, or just on a meeting night?
If I may, we just want the flexibility to be able to use the place until 10 o'clock. We don't want to have hours dictated so that we say, well, that would be fine, but we can only do it on Wednesday night because that's our 10 o'clock night. We want to have that flexibility. We don't anticipate paying 2 bartenders, having that bar open every day. We don't anticipate it being open in the summertime. And our use is going to be limited, and usually there's not enough members there to sustain the bar. But we want to be able to have the flexibility of being open till 10 o'clock.
If I may add, and again, this is anticipating the future, if our exemption from the smoking laws is changed, we don't want to send our smoking members home at 8 o'clock either. We'd like for them to be able to enjoy their smoking and cocktail outside until 10.
And what would they do after 10 o'clock at night?
Go home.
Oh,
Go to
Or
bed-
come back indoors, one or the other,
bed like Jay does.
and not smoke.
all right, thank you.
I have a question, I guess, for you, Audrey, for the city attorney. The staff recommendation being 8 to 8. Can we entertain a motion to extend the closing hour? Obviously, we can, under the pretense that should it get out of hand and we start to get complaints from the neighborhood, then we can go back and, in other words, give them an exception till 10 o'clock. If we start to receive complaints from the neighborhoods, then we go back and
Right.
enforce at 8 o'clock.
The zoning board has made recommendations in the past to modify the hours. That's an easy no-brainer part of the question. The more difficult part is, what do you do if it becomes a problem? And having a triggering condition is difficult. You may wish, because again, we would have to take it for revocation, and that seems kind of
That's
harsh.
strong.
Yeah, draconian for dealing with just, the 2 hours for the Marines' bedtimes. Sorry, guys. What Ms. Genson suggested was do a hybrid, which might be, have it on some nights till 10 and some nights earlier,
Okay. How would that sit with the VFW, with the post?
Naturally, we're going to take what we can get, but I think, speak for myself and the commander, that when you start talking about being more restrictive than you are with the general public, it raises the hair on our necks, because we're not children, and we don't need to have bedtimes or hours dictated to. We can control ourselves, and we can control our membership. And I think, Mr. Brunswick, your idea is proper. Give us the latitude to have till 10 o'clock. And I think we can demonstrate that The neighbors aren't going to see any difference in our operation or noise level. If it becomes a problem, call us in on the carpet and have us address it. But I don't think you'll ever see us here. We just want to have the same rights as anybody in Bonita Springs.
Thank you for that comment. Let me address that because we have had issues with outdoor alcohol consumption outside of VFW or the Moose or any of the other service organizations. And we don't want to treat you any differently. We don't want to put any restrictions. We won't put any restrictions on you that we would put on other businesses, and we have put restrictions on other businesses that are in a neighborhood situation such as yours. So it's not our desire to treat the VFW any differently. Either way, we're not going to give you any special privileges because you're veterans, and you're not asking for that, certainly. But we're not going to treat you any differently than any for-profit organization that would come to us with a similar request. Any further comments?
Yeah, I just want to make one comment. Now, Pine Haven, most of your gated communities and so forth, quiet time is from 10 o'clock at night till 8 o'clock in the morning. Rule of thumb, right? There would be no problem till 10 o'clock at night. If at 10 o'clock at night, whatever was out in the pavilion was gone. Not say, well, hey, 10 o'clock last call, and it gives you another hour till I get out of there, 11 o'clock, 11:30. That's where the problem lies. I mean, and how are you going to monitor the people that are out there in the pavilion at 10 o'clock at night and say, okay, 10 o'clock, that's it, inside
I think
or out?
if I
How do you
may,
monitor that?
you gave me the answer when you asked the question. When you stop serving alcohol in the pavilion, the well has dried up, and the people aren't going to be in there. They're going to go back, if they want to continue to drink, they're going to go into the main building.
How are you going to monitor that those people go inside in the building? If it's exceptionally hot, it's cool outside per se, or they just want to stand outside to have a cigarette and consume their alcohol. What's going to stop them from getting 2 or 3 drinks at 5 minutes to 10 and then sit out there and finish their drinks and have their cigarettes? Now you're talking about going into like 10:30, 11 o'clock. Who's going to monitor that? That's my question.
Okay, let me
Cool.
suggest this then. If that is the rule, then if we have to post it, we'll post it. Right now, we have a sign on the bar that says this bar will not be in use until it is licensed. And we don't even serve soft drinks over that bar. We can certainly replace that sign on the bar and on the door to the pavilion saying, this area must be vacated except for special events at 10 p.m. You can trust us to enforce those rules.
I'm a veteran also, all right? I spent 32 years in the military, and I love my scotch. So, but if somebody tells me I got to be out of there, I'm out of there. But not that we're little kids, because we're not. We're supposed to be grown adults. But you're going to have people that are going to have a little bit too much, one or too many drinks, and they're going to start causing a little bit of problem. Hey, I still got 3 or 4 drinks here. This is what I'm saying. Who's going to monitor that? Is the bartender going to say, well, it's okay, it's 9:45, last call, we got to close at 10 o'clock, so I'm going to give you 5 drinks?
That would
That's
be a
what I'm saying.
function of the bartender. We rarely have a rowdy patron like that, and that is, those issues are handled internally. And then those members or guests face suspensions.
Then I got to go along with Mr. Brunswick. Go to 10 o'clock, but if we have problems, complaints, got to readdress it and close it down. Simple as that.
At this, do you have a question?
I think I may have a suggestion.
Sure.
Condition 2 could be modified. The sale or consumption of alcoholic beverages outdoors may only occur between the hours of 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily, unless you guys want to change the hours there, or 8 p.m. is the staff suggestion. And then add the sentence, no service or consumption will be permitted in the outdoor area after 10 p.m.
That works for me. Would somebody like
That's
to?
assuming you go to the 10 p.m.
Would that work for you? I think that's a win-win.
Yeah.
Would
Second
somebody
that.
like to make a motion to that effect?
Peter just did. I'll second that motion.
Okay, in that
And,
case.
and Mr. Smith, you could probably do what you say and modify, you know, any signage that you have on the bar
We will do that.
as well.
And honorable men and women that you are, we know that you'll take care of seeing that that is not violated.
Thank you for your trust.
Very good. And thank you for your service, all of the veterans that are here. All of the veterans, stand up, please.
Us too? Nice job.
You know, if it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't be here. So we thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you wholeheartedly. So, do we have a question down here?
Just a suggestion, could you reread the motion?
Yes, we will.
The motion, as I understood it, was just on condition 2. So if there's a motion to approve the entire, and I don't know if you want me to go through the conditions because they were modified.
No, I think just the change that you
The
said.
change to number 2 or all of them?
To number 2.
Okay, number 2 was changed. The sale or consumption of alcoholic beverages outdoors may only occur between the hours of 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily. No service or consumption will be permitted in the outdoor area after 10 p.m.
And we have a motion and we have a second. May we have roll call, please?
Robert Inserpi,
Yes.
Mark Nussbaum,
Yes.
Chairman Brunswick,
Yes.
Pete Pastori,
Yes.
Richard Donnelly,
Yes?
Frank Lyles.
Yes, with an excitement mark.
Okay. We thank you very much. Let's just hold up for 2 minutes for those of you that wish to exit, or if you want to stay, you're more than welcome for the other proceedings. But if you want to stay, we'll give you 2 minutes to get out and for me to quickly get another cup of coffee.
Jackie goes first? That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
I'm gonna give me my coffee before I start again.
Hey, I don't think, have you got a case?
One of my questions. Purchase before 8, consume after.
Oh, good.
That
This is
might be-
VFW.
Stretch my leg.
Jim Murphy, I don't know, Jim.
He was for the first case. He was for this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he spoke first.
This is Pelican.
This is VFW. Pelican?
I think this big sounds like
Pelican's B, right? Thank you.
No, they're not little kids, no, we're adults, but,
All these guys from the I thought they were
I did too.
speaking gas.
I thought it was gonna be a,
Pelican. Pelican. Okay.
There is none. So hurry back. Come on. We need to go.
Mr. Chairman, I'll try to stay together with the lights.
Just the case?
Everybody, please take your seats.
Write the case number, I got recognized.
Here we go.
Staff, will you please call the next case?
Yes, thank you. The next case is case number COP 14-13473, BOS, Pelican Landing Community Association, Beach Park Consumption on Premises and Live Entertainment located at 10 Big Hickory Island, Bonita Springs, Florida, 34134. This is another request for consumption on premises. Okay, another time I need to ask people to raise their right hands. I'm going to go with the front area first. Let me do this so I can kind of see people. And Mr. Dolmer, please raise your right hand. And T, you're not required to do it. If you wish to do it, you may, but officers of the court are officers of the court. So I do not require swearing in, but if you want to be a fact witness. Okay, that's fine.
as opposed to argument. Do you swear or affirm testimony you're going to provide is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Now, as I mentioned in the past case, Ms. Genson and Mr. Dolmer, you've been previously tendered as experts in land use and planning. I'm now going to go into the back room, and I see lots of people here. If you'll raise your right hands, and again, I need to have you sworn in. If you're involved in this case, and I'm doing a mass swearing in, I'm not going to try to count this time. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you provide is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Now, occasionally I may have experts in the audience. Does anybody here need to be voir dired or tendered as an expert in land use planning, engineering, anything relevant to this particular case? Okay, I just wanted to make sure I asked the question. Now, normally when we have Mr. Kirby, I may have you also. Did I swear you in? Where you at? Please raise your right hand. Do you swear firm testimony you're going to provide the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thanks. And you've been previously tendered as an expert in environmental planning? Thank you. Okay. Now, usually when we do have the case represented by an applicant with professional experience, they go forward. However, because Ms. Genson did a wonderful job preparing for the case, Ms. Genson will go first in this particular matter.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? And lights, and we'll begin. If anybody was not tendered as an expert and desires to speak in the case when public is called, please let me know so we can have you sworn in at that time.
Good morning. For the record, Jacqueline Genson again. And I'm just going first because I have a presentation. So,
Do you have enough light to see?
I do. Thank you very much. The request recommendation, as Ms. Vance read into the record, is for consumption on premises for a 4 COP in conjunction with a private off-site recreation facility. There is request in here for live entertainment, but we'll kind of go into that a little bit later on whether or not that's actually necessary in this case. In conjunction also with a restaurant group 2, and I'll go over what that is as well. Staff reviewed the request, and we did recommend approval with conditions. And there are some conditions that we're going to propose some changes to, and we will go over those in detail. Okay, so in your staff report, you do have the proposed conditions that we submitted last week. Up on the screen, you'll see where there are underlined additions, where I worked with Mrs. Vance last night, or yesterday afternoon about it, because she was out of town when this was being created. So this is with legal's assistance. So condition 1 will remain the same, except for we added a comma. Condition 2, you'll see in the underlined area, we took out the reference to the island and put in within the licensed area, which is the pavilion and the decks that are directly adjacent to. Also added that any alcohol served after dusk would be permitted by private party only and is subject to licensure by the caterer or entities with the license. And Mr. Hart will go into that. It really it dovetails into their current practice right now that the HOA does allow. Number 3 remains unchanged. Number 4, again, we went ahead and added to the licensed area. Number 5, we added licensed area as well, just to remain consistent. Condition 6 was just some better verbiage in terms of how they need to obtain other state and local permits, such as health department, fire, and any other building permit. Condition 7 pertains to the noise, and this is, again, another situation where every single piece of property has to abide by the city's noise ordinance. But because this request is coming forward, with our consumption on premise permits, we usually always add some type of condition relating to noise. And mainly it's to go ahead and restate that the applicant will go ahead and abide by the city's noise ordinance as it's amended from time to time, because ordinances are amended from time to time. And then also prohibiting the music between May 1st and October 30th because of certain nesting season periods, which Mr. Kirby can testify later if there's additional questions. I believe the applicant is going to propose some changes to that, so they'll do that during their presentation, and we can take it to the board for discussion. Condition 8 remains unchanged, and again, it's a condition to ensure that This special exception is for this property and also the entities that are applying for it. Again, if the property should change hands or other entities form new partnerships, this special exception would become null and void, and they'd have to go through the same process again to go ahead and obtain it. And it's really to protect the integrity of that piece of property. And then number 9, what code already dictates, if they're operating not in compliance with the resolution, the city has the ability to revocate the permit. And that's just giving assurance to everyone that you are on notice that the city is able to revocate. Just to go over the land use entitlements that currently exist on the property's future land use designation is resource protection. It does allow for recreational uses. This is an existing recreational use that was permitted under Lee County in the 90s. They also received the ability to expand their current beach facility around 2005, 2007. So it's always operated as a private off-site recreational facility. Zoning, it's AG2. The private off-site recreation facility is a use that is permitted by special exception. Again, this is already an existing use that is there. The zoning also allows consumption on premises, which reverts back or directs you to the supplemental regulations of the Land Development Code, which, because this property is within 500 feet of Lover's Key and Lee County Beach Park, they have to go through the special exception process for the alcohol consumption. Again, existing use, it's the private facility off-site recreation. This is an aerial of the property from Lee County GIS. The area in blue is the property in question. It's over 30 acres in size. The piece that we're actually dealing with is right in here where you have the pavilion and the deck areas and then some of the beachfront. A majority of the property is under a conservation easement. So it's only the property that's not bound by a conservation easement, and it's even further limited with the attachment, which I'll go into a little more detail. To the north, you do have Lover's Key. And even this little section here, it is property owned by Lee County, but they do lease it to Lover's Key. So it is part of the Lover's Key State Park. Here you have the Hickory Preserve, which is a Lee County managed property. You have the Gulf of Mexico to the west, and they also have the Estero Bay area to the east. And this is Estero Bay Boulevard. This is the site plan that was attached, and I'll try to walk you through this, but this is the large pavilion that they're requesting the consumption in, and these are the deck space that they would serve the alcohol and the limited food service. So they're not proposing it on the beach or any of the walkways or these little pavilions here. And this little pavilion here is actually, this one's like an educational kiosk, come learn about us, and some bathroom facilities. So it would only be in this deck space here and then in this enclosed pavilion. These are some site photos, so you can kind of see, if you haven't been out to the property, the subject areas in question. This is one of the deck areas here. Here's the deck area. This is the original pavilion that's now more of like an informational center or educational center. This is the area where they're proposing some of the food service to be set up. This is interior to the pavilion, which is rather large. This is, again, the area of where the food prep space would be. And this is the propane facility that they would be utilizing with the cooking. And they have been in direct coordination with Bonita Springs Fire District in terms of what they would need to go ahead and prepare the food preparation for that. Surrounding neighborhood, which I went over originally, most of this area is in some type of recreation, conservation, or some type of protection due to its environmental sensitivity. The property itself is resource protection with AG2 zoning, which does allow the private facility and consumption on premises in accordance with the Land Development Code. Regarding justification, why staff feels that the request is appropriate and how we were able to recommend approval, it is an existing private off-site recreational facility. And recreational facilities do offer concessions. So, but of course, this is a private club, and they want to have the ability to serve non-alcoholic and alcoholic beverages to their membership and Hyatt guests only. So there are conditions in there relative to that any member of the HOA must have their card to purchase food or beverage, and any Hyatt guests must have their hotel room key or whatever form of paraphernalia that they need to get the food or beverage. No one can just pull up to the beach, park their boat, go up and get food and service. You can't walk from Lee County Beach Park and get food service. You can't come across Lover's Key to get the food and beverage service. So it's solely for the members of the HOA and the Hyatt. For the music, they want to do music piped in at conversational levels, just on the deck areas. They're not going to have music on the beach, but I can let the applicant go ahead and or discuss that in more detail. But regardless, every property in the city has to abide by the city's noise ordinance. They do have, and I did provide it in your staff report backup as attachments, there is a beach park management plan that was approved when the beach park was first in operation. There is a beach park operational plan, but these are private documents. So those are something that the HOA would go ahead and amend as needed with their membership and through their process and bylaws. They also have ranger staff that are very knowledgeable. They set up the beach, and even some of them have some environmental licensures. So, but they can go into that a little more detail as well. Based on the licensed area, based on just review of their operational guidelines, staff didn't feel that it would have any adverse impacts on the beach. If anything, some of what they're proposing would probably help with controlling what items can come onto the beach, what food comes to the beach, what containers they come in, maybe less trash. They coordinated with Turtle Time in terms of what types of straws. They can't have straws because of the adverse impacts to sea turtles. So there are some benefits with offering this as an amenity to the HOA members and the Hyatt guests as a mean to control more what comes onto this property and protect the environment. Mike Kirby and I did do a site visit last month. We met with Marie and another member of the beach park where they walked us through and showed us where certain things would be happening. And Mr. Kirby, who is very well versed in shorebirds and nesting and roosting and sea turtles, was there, and just based on their proposal, because it's going to be on the decks and the hours of operation, we felt that it was appropriate. We did receive a couple of concerned citizens that did call. So I had a couple of phone calls, talked to a few people, but really directed them towards talking with the HOA, because some of them might be more private matters that they have to go ahead and work out. So based on the findings, we felt that it was appropriate with the criteria for recommending approval for special exception, and if you have any questions, staff would be happy to answer.
I have a couple of questions. You have said they will allow, you'll buy your food and beverage at the pavilion. You will be able to take it to the beach, correct?
No, they won't be able to take it to the beach, especially the alcohol, and there will be signs posted as such, and that is a condition in the document.
Okay. Can you tell me how close this park is to the nearest, the nearest residential area or
I cannot, but it's rather far.
rather far? More than a half a mile?
Okay.
Pardon? It's a long ways away.
Correct.
So my concern is how this might impact the residents along Hickory Boulevard. That's why I asked that question. Okay. And I have, you mentioned that they would have to go back, any change in ownership or thank you, so I can read now. Any change in ownership or operational entity will require a new special exception. So that means if the Hyatt Hotel becomes a Hilton, they would have to go back through this process again?
Yes, that is my intent.
That's the way I understand it.
Correct.
Okay. We have any other questions?
Is the outdoor seating area and the area inside the pavilion, is that also limited by Bonita Springs Fire and Rescue for capacity?
Correct. The Florida Building Code has a certain ratio that relates to bathrooms. So you can't add more seats than bathroom facilities that you have available. With fire, they also have their own formula in terms of setting table seats and spacing. And then to even make it more complicated, depending on what type of licensure with the state with alcohol that you apply for, they too have a different criteria. That more so plays in with bars. But in this case, it's a COP with consumption with food, so there's different standards.
So what would the capacity be inside the pavilion and out on the deck?
The capacity is already set by the fire marshal. I'm not sure. There might be occupancy signs on the pavilion that.
What's the reason for your question on that? That seems
Reason for my
irrelevant.
question is, in the beach park management document, they're talking about private party participants at a pavilion event are counted as part of the total 600 numbers of people allowed at the beach park.
And I think the applicant is better able to address that and how that reporting is done on an annual basis and who she reports that to.
Just want to make sure all these numbers are consistent.
Good, thank you. Any other questions from the board? Having seen none, would like to thank you, Jackie. We wish to have some comments from the applicants. Please state your name for the record.
Thank you. My name is Tom Hart. I'm the General Counsel for the Pelican Landing Community Association. With me is the manager, Marie Martell, and the Vice President, Jim Murphy, and a representative from the Hyatt, Mr. Parvis. I wanted to give you a little additional information. First of all, we agree with everything that staff said, and we've agreed with every condition that staff has set. We think that they've done an excellent job of analyzing this situation. I think it's important for you to know, I will get back to your specific questions, but I do think it's important for you to recognize that this park has been in existence for some nearly 20 years, that it's been managed by the Pelican Landing Community Association, which is the HOA for the Pelican Landing residents, the homeowner association. It's been managed by them for 12, 13 years at this point. It's covered by that beach management plan that you have a copy of in your backup. It's covered by the operational guidelines. And both of those things are directed at protecting the shore, the dunes, the walkovers, the shorebirds, the turtles. It's intended to be a nice amenity for the residents of Pelican Landing. From the beginning, the developer created this beach park to be run by the association with Hyatt or whatever hotel in the very beginning as a member of the association. Since about 2001, Hyatt has been a member of this association, and as a member, its guests are invited to come to the to participate on the beach park. So that's how this application comes forward. This application is being made by the association, by the homeowners association. It is run by a 5-member board. It's governed by a 5-member board, 4 of whom are elected representatives of the Pelican Landing community. They're elected just like your city council is elected. They're not paid, they're volunteers, they're there to do a good job for their neighbors. They're trying to step up and be responsible. And the beach park is one of the amenities that they're responsible for. That's why they've agreed over the years, not the same board obviously, they change a little bit from year to year, but they've agreed over the years to operate that beach park with these very strict rules that are part of that beach management plan, part of the operational guidelines, because they think this is a nice amenity as well and they want to keep it that way. The island Ms. Jensen showed you is offshore. The beach park itself is 34 acres. Only 2 acres are developed where this pavilion is located. The pavilion is roughly in the center of the beach park. The answer to the question about the nearest residence, it's a little over 4,000 feet away. And it's the Bonita Beach Club Condominium Association, which is at the north end of the island. There are no churches, religious facilities anywhere nearby, no schools anywhere nearby, much further than 4,000 feet. And those condos are the only residences of any consequence let me back up, are the only residences within 4,000 feet of this facility. In addition to those guidelines, I think it's important for you to know that the community has always employed park rangers. It has a beach manager. It has a beach assistant manager. There's always staff there that is paid and managed by Ms. Martell as general manager for Pelican Landing. At all hours of operation, there are at least 1 or 2 rangers there. The guidelines call for additional rangers when the population increases on the beach. The current requirements are that of the deed restrictions say that there are only to be less than 500 people at the beach at any one time. The beach was renourished by the community. They spent their private money to renourish that beach, and they've expanded the beach. So there's been some talk about expanding the numbers of people who could go to the beach up to maybe 600. But that's the max, 600 people. These hours, and I think it's real important, especially after your earlier discussion today, the hours that are being requested here are to dusk, 11 a.m. to dusk. What's being requested is limited food service of the type 2 restaurant, the snack bar, the grills. You saw the pictures. There's a limited menu. The alcohol that really is wanted is beer and wine service. Because this is a lengthy process and because we don't know what might happen in the future, the association said, well, let's ask for consumption on premises and let's not limit it to beer and wine, because who knows what could happen in the future. And right or wrong, I have to take the blame for that, because I said this is a long and tedious process. You only want beer and wine now, but why wouldn't you just ask for consumption, including alcohol? And it really is the same thing, the same criteria, the same analysis. And so let's put that in the application. And that's why it comes in as a possible 4 COP. That's not, and I think Mr. Parvis will tell you, that's not the intent right now. It could be someday in the future. And so I want to let you know about that. The music was kind of an afterthought. There's never been any intention to have music that exceeds the noise ordinance. The condition number 7 that we agreed to says that music outside entertainment will never exceed the city noise ordinance as it's amended from time to time. Never was an intent. We didn't want to confuse anybody with that. But it occurred to me as I was thinking about this in your discussion earlier today, that condition actually limits, as it's presently written, it limits the association to not being able to do a special event. They couldn't come to the city if we leave the condition the same. They couldn't come to the city and say, we would like to prove that we could have a special event that would not do any detriment to the rest of the community, and get a permit to do that. And so I would propose to add a phrase to the end of the first sentence on condition number 7 to the effect that there would outside entertainment and music would not exceed the noise ordinance as amended unless or except if approved specifically through a city special permit. And let me start to address some of the specific questions then. You, the question was asked, could members take food to the beach? And the answer was no, and we agree with that. I told you what I actually know, and I did swear in Ms. Vance. I checked yesterday, and that's why I know that newest residence, or nearest residence, is 4,000 plus feet away. The capacity questions. The capacity of the building is set at 480. I tried to answer how many people could actually be at the beach, but I think the question specifically was what about the capacity of the building?
Mm-hmm.
And I believe Ms. Martell told me that was, I think it's posted, correct? Yes.
And that's inside the pavilion and on the deck?
That's inside the pavilion.
Yeah.
And on the deck?
And on the
Okay.
deck.
I've been corrected. It's inside and on the deck. Okay. The one of the things I hope you'll bear in mind, and I tried to explain that this association has a good exemplary track record of trying to take care of this park and the shores and the wildlife. The beach park managers provide transportation for turtle time every day to come out and check for nests, to mark the nest, to mark the shore. Beach park manager actually marks the shorebird nesting areas. This approval would allow the community association to provide the cold drinks and the alcohol and the limited food and eliminate a lot of the same things that are being brought in coolers and paper bags and all sorts of cans and various types of food and other containers and plastic bags. They wouldn't be eliminated, but by having it presented in a comprehensive manner at the pavilion, away from the shore, we think it will be an improvement. We think it'll eliminate a lot of the negative impacts that could be there today. There should be less of the sandwich wrappers and the clear plastic wrap, because the residents, when they want to go to the beach, will know that they can get something to drink, they can get something to eat. They don't have to pack their own food and whatever manner they might do that. I think that's all I wanted to tell you. If there's anything I can answer for you, I'll be glad to try, and if I can't, I suspect Ms. Martell can do that.
Very good. Thank you very much. Any questions from the board? Seeing none, Ms. Martell, do you have anything you wish to add?
Mr. Murphy's going to
Mr. Murphy, please step forward. State your name, Mr. Murphy.
Jim Murphy.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, gentlemen of the Zoning Board, thank you for this opportunity to speak before you today. My name is Jim Murphy, Vice President, Pelican Landing Community Association Board of Directors. I will be speaking on behalf of our board's unanimous support for the modifications to our beach zoning. I wish to thank the city staff for their guidance and consideration in this matter. Our community has an excellent relationship with the Hyatt people. We greatly appreciate all they do for our residents and our guests. We have complete confidence in the Hyatt's ability to manage a small food and beverage operation at our beach pavilion in a most responsible manner. We feel this will be a great new amenity to our fabulous island beach. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Parviz, do you have anything to say? Please state your name.
Good morning. My name is Parviz Monsafan. I'm the Food and Beverage Director of the Hyatt. I'm here with a few of my colleagues. And I've been at this Hyatt, Regency Coconut Point, for almost 6 years. And one of the number one concerns of our guests when they come to the Hyatt and they go to the beach, and what a wonderful beach environment that is there any food and beverage on the beach? Can we get some water? So 2 years we put some vending machine before the people get on a board and so forth, but that hasn't solved the problem. The issue is really people going to that beach, especially now that the beach is extended and it's a beautiful environment, and they want to be able to get some water, they want to be able to get some food, and they don't want to bring their food and beverage to the island with them. So with that being said, I think having the food and beverage opportunity on the beach is a fantastic opportunity for Pelican residents and Hyatt guests, and also coconut plantation guests to go. And as the gentleman noted, not anybody can go and get food and beverage on the island. They really have to have a Hyatt key to the room. They have to have Pelican Landing cards. And it's really managed properly. And as they mentioned earlier, there are rangers on the beach. Our scope of our business is going to be on the pavilion. It's very limited menu. We wanted to start really make sure that there is all the rules are abide by, and we are not breaking any rules. We are not creating a bigger problem on the island. We want to make sure that it's very smooth operation. And as the gentleman noted, we didn't have plan for any music. Yeah, and the music ordinance is going to be followed. The music was the background music, if any, if we were going to do that. And at the end of the operation, which is 11 to 5 for us, we will remove all the trash, everything that is going to be on the pavilion, all the food and beverage, everything would go back to the hotel. Nothing would be left on the island to manage the process. So if there's any question, anything I can answer for you, I'd be more than happy to.
Do we have any questions? Seeing none?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to ask for public comment. Would please come forward, one at a time, and state your name. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Bob Luce, and I live in Pelican Landing, and I am a member of the UOC, which is the Unit Owners Committee, and I represent Castella, which is one of the communities in Pelican Landing. And I would just like to thank Ms. Jensen for putting online the whole application. It was one of the people she referred to. I was the one I spoke with her and let me just give you a background about this whole thing. Back in May at the UOC meeting, we were discussing. There was mention there was going to be food and beverage at the beach, and everybody thought that was a good idea. And then the word liquor came up, and I didn't mention anything at the time, but I sat back, and after that, I immediately wrote an email on May 8th to the president of the association. I said, look, the word liquor was mentioned, and I said, look, we don't want this to turn into the Fort Myers Beach Tiki Bar, the pool deck on the cruise ships, where you have margaritas, pina coladas, mojitos, steel band music, all these things. And I never heard any response to that email. My wife and I left on an extended trip shortly thereafter, and I asked somebody else on the UOC to bring this up at the June meeting. And at the June meeting, this person brought it up and said that it would just be beer and wine. I came back from my extended trip about 2 weeks ago, and I'm a big user of the beach. So I was out at the beach, and I went to the pavilion to use the restrooms, and I see the sign saying there's a hearing on July 22nd. And that's what started me. That's when I made the telephone call to Ms. Jensen and asked about what's going on. And I did look at the total application that was put online. And in response, and you know how the application works, and there's questionnaires, and you have to respond to the questionnaires. So Part 4E of the application has language that Mr. Hart put in there that says, this request includes a request to permit all alcoholic beverages. And later on, it goes on to say, in order to make traditional island-style alcoholic beverages. And then they talk about the music. And it goes, this request for music includes acoustic as well as amplified music from 11 a.m. to dusk. This music contemplated is either live, island-style solo, or small group performances or pre-recorded play, and it's to be played on the pavilion and or on the deck. Well, obviously to say, this did not make me happy. I sent an email around everybody, and it started a tsunami of emails, and it started a tidal wave. Last Friday, the association president sent out a blast email, which I would like to make part of the record, calming the waters. And it was a very good email. In that email, and I would like to, if we could, the conditions, and there's some of the conditions that are in the staff's recommendations are included in this, but there are many that are not. And I would like to read if I could just give this is the That is, in fact, the email that was sent out to everybody. And I want to read to you some of the conditions that the president, to calm the waters, because if he didn't send this out, I can tell you this room would be packed. But this email has calmed everybody down. And the email says that all menu items are to be prepared and consumed on the pavilion. Signs will be posted on the pavilion to this effect. Fine. Limited menu of hot and cold sandwiches. Fine. Beverages consisting of cold drinks, beer, and wine. Hard liquor will not be available during these daily operational hours, but only for special parties approved by the PLCA. Hours of operation will be not from, it says from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m., not 11 a.m. to dusk. 7 days a week. Amenity is only available to Pelican Landing residents and Hyatt guests with proper identification, Pelican Landing resident badge, and Hyatt room key. There's some other things about getting the food and beverages off, which I'm not. We'll go down to the next one. Music not permitted during normal beach hours, but could be approved for special occasions and parties. Now, I think that since this is what everybody's relying on, these should be the conditions that are also put into the recommendation by the staff. This is what the PLCA said they were going to do, and I believe that when they say it, so let's put it into the conditions, and I'm sure Mr. Hart will agree to that because that's what the president sent out. So if we could have those put in, I think that goes a long way to solving a lot of the issues that the people have. The things that I would like to now, there's a couple other items, though, that I like to mention, and that is that one of the condition about having the Hyatt, if the Hyatt is not a party to this, then there is no food and beverage. Right now, I asked, and I saw the agreement yesterday, or no, there is no agreement right now. There's no agreement between PLCA and the Hyatt with respect to food and beverage. There is a draft of the agreement, which I saw yesterday morning, and the only thing in that draft which refers to food and beverage, this is a draft to amend our declaration regarding the use of the beach. The Hyatt will be able to sell food and drinks at the beach pavilion, and Hyatt guests and Pelican Landing residents and their guests only. The Hyatt will be solely responsible for removal of all food and trash each night. Obviously, the draft that is being circulated has none of the provisions either that the staff has recommended or that is contained in this email that went out Friday night. The last part, and I think this board will appreciate it because these are the questions that you were asking to the VFW. Control. You know, how if it's on, and you know, if it's going to be limited, as they say, to beer and wine, and it's only going to be on the deck, and we're going to limit to who can use it. Now, this is a beach that is very highly used by the public. There has to be a mechanism in the conditions setting forth how this will be policed. You know, there are two exits and entrance. There's two ways you can get onto this deck and to the pavilion. And there has to be some kind of monitoring at those entrance points so that it will prevent people from taking beverages and food onto the beach. As they say, I don't think a sign on in and of itself is going to work. And then the other thing is to making sure that we have only people who are members of Pelican Landing and who have hotel guest keys. So, you know, in our genteel world, we call them greeters. In other parts of the world, we call them bouncers. But in whatever you want to call them, you need something at these points which will make sure that this does not get out of hand, that this does not become a commercial entity where people from boats can come on and buy their liquor. And especially if you allow music, this is going to be like the calling card for these boaters. They hear this music and they go, where's my mojito? Where is my pina colada? And that's what we're concerned about. And that's what all the residents, I shouldn't say all the residents, there are many residents, and this has certainly not been full disclosure as to what could possibly happen here. So that's about all I have to say for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Apparently, he's expressed the thoughts of many. Any other comments? Would you please come forward and state your name?
My name is Barbara Craig, and I'm a resident of Pelican Landing and a resident of Bonita Springs. I want to raise a very different issue than what has been spoken of so
Make sure
far.
you speak in the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should know that. I've done that for a long time, but okay. Has to get a little lower. Is that enough? Okay, there we are. Okay, I have read all the documents that were put on the web, thanks to your request, searching for one thing which I was unable to find, and that is a mention of an analysis or study of the environmental impact concerning the obvious increase in the usage of the bathroom facilities that will be occasioned by the addition of a food service with sale of alcohol, and that has already been occasioned by the increase that the board recently announced from 480 to 600 people that daily can come to the beach. The septics, the island bathrooms, there are a men's room and women's room connected to the pavilion itself inside the closed building there. And there are other ones down by that building that they noticed to you was a educational facility. This is supported by a septic system and I assume a leaching field. I have never seen it. I don't know what it is. This is all on a barrier island, which, as you've seen from the pictures, is surrounded by very fragile and sensitive environmental areas, environmentally protected areas. And it is basically a shifting sandbar. I have provided, I don't know that I have enough.
Thank you.
It's color copies, so I was watching the budget here. But this, if you go through this series of maps, which are Lee County maps, and these are over a series of years going back to 1944, that shows the change in this island and what has happened, because it is just a sandbar. Here's what it was in 2011. If you took a picture today, it would be a little bigger because there's been a beach replenishment that's happened. But if you go back to the 1950s, 1960s, you will find it looks very, very different. And we all know that when you do a beach replenishment, it is a temporary fix. You only have to go down and walk Barefoot Beach if you've done that in any regular basis to see what in 2 years has happened with that very expensive replenishment. And since I go fairly regularly to our beach, I have watched already the erosion going on. So this is a very fragile and shifting area, and a septic system on it is a big issue. It's really what they're asking for a special exception on, and as a zoning board, you're looking at permanent real estate, is really not easy to define as a piece of definable real estate. It shifts and changes over time. And I think to allow the addition of a food and beverage service and to increase the daily limit of visitors from 480 to 600 people per day, which is a 25% increase, without assessing the impact of increased toilet usage on a limited septic system so closely located to these environmental sensitive areas, is not only unwise, but I believe it does not live up to the requirements of law and regulation. I could find no evidence or reference to any consultation with the Southwest Florida Water Management District concerning potential adverse ecological effects or impacts on hydrological functions. And that particular phrase is what the regulation requires. The question of whether the septic system and the percolation load of its leaching field can handle the load of these additional toilet flushes is one that needs to be asked, and a professional study needs to be done to assess that. The sole mention in the documents made available on these issues is a statement in an email from the applicant's attorney, Mr. Hart, to Jacqueline Jensen and Paula Weller, stating, quote, "As for any adverse hydrological functions, comma, I cannot think of any such adverse effects arising out of the proposed use," end quote. Well, I can think of one, and I think when you add this many people, additional people, and you start serving drinks, which occasion people to need to run to the toilet a little bit more often, you are adding an additional load onto a sensitive septic system that needs to be assessed. One other point, considering the fact that the application notes that there is on-site water, which is in Part 2 of your general information section, Section F, number 3, then the question of a potential groundwater pollution from the septic system is certainly one that should be considered as well. I note here, though, that in the explanation of F3, which is a question about potable water, it specifically asks, is there potable water on site? It does not ask if there is running water on site. It asks if there is potable water. All water faucets, bathrooms, and showers at the pavilion carefully note in posted signage that the water is not potable, do not drink it. The reality then is that there is not on-site potable water, which I would think would be a necessary condition for authorizing a food and beverage service. If you have water that is not sanitary to drink, is it sanitary to deal with food and beverage? But still, even if this is non-potable water, it's obviously, at least at this point, however one measures potable water, and I claim no expertise there, it is sufficient to use to wash your hands and flush the toilets. And so there is danger of this septic system, which, as my understanding, and I think it's on one of the maps, is located quite close to the pavilion itself, and in an area where there is vegetation around. Very little vegetation is at this end of the island, and it needs to be protected if we are to have the holding power of the shifting sand in the event of sea surge, etc. But these various departments have not been consulted. I see no consultation with the County Department of Health, which I think would be someone you would want to consult with about a food and beverage service that is going to be done in a place where there's no potable water. We know that if you have a landside septic system, you can get it pumped out. That's the solution. But you can't do this out on this island that, as was pointed out, is 4,000 feet from the mainland across water. So I don't know if there's any pump-out boat here in Lee County, and if there is, if there's one with a long enough hose to get to this septic system. But I think that's a question that this body needs to have information about. For all these reasons, I believe that this hearing cannot go forward at this point and should be adjourned until the appropriate analysis and studies are performed and provided to the zoning board. These analyses and studies need to address the questions of, in your own wording, potential adverse ecological effects or impacts on hydrological functions with the addition of a food and beverage service on island and the increase in numbers of visitors allowed daily. Such a study would need to be done under high usage conditions, that is, in season, not during the season's low usage. Or, if modeled, which is obviously an alternative, done taking into consideration the potential load of repeated days of the new maximum daily number of visitors allowed and the additional load on the bathroom facilities that could be expected by adding to this large number of visitors and on-site beverage and food service. Furthermore, any such analysis should consider in its assessment the likely erosion of this now larger beach area and whether this erosion over the next 2 or 3 years will impact the implications of adding 600 people per day to the beach and a food and beverage system. And that's all I have to say. If you have any questions, I'm happy to.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions? You bring up some good points. I have a question.
Okay.
Jackie, has any research been done on the issues that this lady has brought to our attention this morning?
Yeah, for the record, Jacqueline Ginson, when Mike Kirby and I visited the site a month ago, we did inquire about the septic system that is there, and Ms. Martell can explain that they have had it serviced before, but she can explain how they do that. In terms of beach renourishment, Mike Kirby is here to explain the permit that they obtained from FDEP and the technology that they used for the latest beach renourishment with the groin pylons. I'm not going to even try to explain that, but it is a new technology to help reduce with the shoreline, but Mike can talk about that. In terms of increase in activity and use, they're limited by the beach management plan anyway, so which is an annual report that Ms. Martell does. So I'll let Ms. Martell, the applicant, address that. And then also with the food cart, I mean, typically you get your zoning for certain things, and then afterwards you do have to go and get the necessary permits through Department of Health, Fire, and Building for the food service. And the regulations that they would require for a mobile cart, if you will, the Hyatt can probably speak to that better than I can. So some of these would have to be answered by the applicant.
Could I make just one more comment? Because it was, when you asked the question, how many people were allowed in the pavilion, the explanation, I think, from the board was it was tied to the load that the bathrooms could carry. And the number for this, for the pavilion and the deck is 480, and that has just been increased to 600. So the question would be, has there been a reassessment of whether the current bathroom facilities can handle this additional load?
Maybe I misunderstood, but I thought it was always 600.
No, it has been 480.
Okay.
And that was the thing. It was just in the last 2 months that the board announced that they were increasing it to 600.
Is that correct?
Yes, it is, on the beach, not on the pavilion,
Okay. On the beach.
on the beach.
Mr. Chairman, let me also add, that 600 is not agreed to, it's not finalized. It's 480 today. We're not asking you to approve 600.
Okay,
That would-
okay.
That would be something for the board to take up in conjunction with the developer and with Hyatt.
All right.
And they are talking about it. We're not trying to hide that from you, but it hasn't been decided, and plans aren't in place for that yet.
Let me ask the city attorney in this case, do we have a dog in the fight on this issue of 480 versus 600? Is that something that we need to be concerned of?
Well, the first thing I'd request is that people please not applaud or do anything that's inappropriate at public hearings. As to your particular question, we do have a condition in there requiring any other permits required by any other agency. So it is not something I see, I mean, I think it's answered in that I don't think we need to spend that much time on
Okay.
the septic tank.
I had
don't
to ask the
remember-
question.
And quite frankly, I don't remember any other COP permit where we've ever really spent time on the sanitation involved in the COP.
Okay.
That was new to me.
But I think, I still feel personally.
Right, I
that it's a-
understand the
that it's-
environmental issues. I'm cognizant of that and the sensitivity of this area. And I think staff can address those issues if necessary. But I think it's something that does go above and beyond your normal COP. And I do recognize this is not normal, but it is something that we do have a condition requiring them to get any other permits necessary.
Okay, very good. Any other questions on the board?
And quite frankly, I can modify that permit, that condition. The approval does not eliminate any other permits for food and beverage service as required by the city or any other agency, and we could include, this includes verification of sanitation or verification of.
I think that's a good addition, yes. Once you have that worded, I'll ask that you read it back to
Okay.
us. Mr. Nussbaum?
In this letter from the president of the PLCA, he does comment that once approved, it is the responsibility of the PLCA staff to manage these activities. So I don't want anybody to think it's this board's responsibility if someone pulls up with a boat, you know, that we're supposed to check ID. You know, just want to make that clear.
Well, it's my understanding without a Pelican Landing residence card.
Right.
Or a hotel key card.
And that's what the president
They'll
is
be
saying.
asked to leave. And that's what your beach ranger staff is there for. That's certainly one of the purposes. So, yeah, I don't see where we have to, where we as a city are concerned with the policing of that activity. That's between the Pelican Landing Community Association and the Hyatt, and that's fine with me. Yes? No, okay. Any other, anybody else wish to step forward? One at a time, please, in alphabetical order. Thank you, sir.
Jay, is that?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. State your name.
My name is Jim Julo. I'm an occasional resident of Bonita Springs. They keep moving me back and
That's
forth.
a double J.
Yeah, but I know I'm a resident of Pelican Landing. I apologize, Marie. She's been very receptive to my comments. I've been out of town, flew in last night. So all I could do was come to this meeting this morning. I had 2 points to make, but I have 2 things I'd like to share with this board. One is the 4 elected officials of our board of directors. And it sounds great when they say it in this room. Jim, I think you were the last director that was elected by vote. The last 2 have been unopposed. So it's not necessarily a electable board. It is one of the people who volunteered.
There's that many people that want the job, right?
Yeah. I just, it was said
We
they're
under-
elected, and
we
I
understand that.
merely point out, yeah. The second is, in the last several months, I think it would be fair to say, at least by our communications from the staff, that we're getting our arms around managing the new beach park that since its refurbishment. We've had, I think, a trouble with the number of guests. We have tried to find a way to limit the number of non-resident guests who are coming into the park because our usage has gone through the roof, because it's a much more wonderful place to come visit than it has been before. And I think that should weigh into how quickly we want to make another change to the beach park, given that I think we're still putting our arms around what it looks like now that it's been refurbished. The 2 points I really came to make today is I take very seriously a change in the governance of a developed community like Pelican Landing. I mean, the bylaws and the rules by which we live, I've always thought were kind of put in place, and to change them, you needed an act of God. That's not true. I found that out. It is much easier to change those rules than I thought it was. But I think we should still take great pause when we do that, because I've invested a lot of money, as have everybody else in the Pelican Landing community, in a residence that I plan to live in for a long time. And I did it under the guise of, here's what the rules were. This is a change to that. I think it needs to be thought out. And the last point I'll make is I find it odd, or at least interesting, that this process is occurring when, at least in my neighborhood, 80-some% of the people are someplace else. Like I say, I flew in yesterday night, and I had this email over the course of my travels, and I finally just said, well, I'm going to get up this morning and I'm going to go down to the meeting. I know there's 10 or 11 people to my left and 10 or 11 people to my right that don't have that opportunity because they're not here. And to buy a plane ticket to come down to testify to this group is just not a high priority with them. If you were having this meeting, I think he said it a little earlier, in November, you would have to have it in a gymnasium, in my opinion. Not testimony, just an opinion. So those are my comments, and I thank you for having them. And
thank
again,
you.
Marie, I'm sorry I couldn't do that to you personally, but she's always been very kind to take my comments.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. You're next.
And let me just make sure.
And if you, anybody else, if you want to just stand up here in the center behind this young lady, if you wish to speak, and then we'll take you in that order. Yes, ma'am, please state
I
your
have
name.
been sworn in, yes. My name is Mary McVeigh. I've been a resident of Pelican Landing since 1993, and I am a unit owner committee representative. I was one of the 5 original members of a group that incorporated, and I worked with Mr. Hart, and I've worked many times with Marie and with my dear friend Jim Murphy. This was the mediation agreement in the early 2000s that was between Hyatt, WCI, and our group, our band of 5, which represented the residents. Our goal was to limit commercialization of our pristine private beach park, and it is Ag 2 zoning, and we wanted, it was sold to us as a beach park for residents of Pelican Landing. Now, I also know through going through this process that timeshares are considered residences, and that's why the Hyatt was there. Our second goal was with respect to the conservation easement on this pristine island, to protect the nesting turtles, shorebirds, and to limit noise which threatens these animals. Our third goal was to discourage our private island as a destination point for boaters seeking food, beverages, and music. The island is similar in nature to Barefoot Beach State Park, which is a treasure in Southwest Florida. We strove to keep our island in that same fashion as the Barefoot Beach Park. We currently don't sell anything on the island. We're not supposed to. We have special events set up, and that's how we do it. and the Hyatt can have special events set up. However, and the five of us are not fools. We knew that the Hyatt would eventually want food and beverages out there. But we always figured they'd do it at Coconut Point, where they pick up the boat. And they're currently redoing the building that's there. And we thought they'd have a kiosk so they could sell the stuff there and go pick it up on the island, rather than tempt boaters. This would limit excess food being brought out there, drinks being brought out there, potential food spoilage. Delivery could be made to the pavilion, but no transactions would be made to the island, simplifying the procedure and not violating commercialization of the island. Compliance is a main concern of the residents of Pelican Landing, including myself. There have been jet skis rented on the island, and that is not permitted. That happened last weekend. When I was at the beach 3 weekends before, there were people walking up the pavilion that were not residents of Pelican Landing or guests of the Hyatt. If you have music there and you do not have people at the 2 entry places, what's going to prevent me, and I'm a boater in Virginia, but we would always pick a restaurant to go to. What's going to prevent them from taking their food and beer and going up to our island, which has a magnificent view, to our pavilion and listen to the music? Nothing. One of the things, I did talk to Jim Murphy, the vice president of the PLCA board, and he told me that they were going to have signs at the 2 entry points saying, don't take your food and wine away from here, you have to consume it here. But there's nothing preventing the boaters from coming up there and drinking their food and wine on our pavilion. Controls have to be in place. And Jim Murphy said, Mary, we don't want to be that type of island. I'm sorry. I do want it to be that type of island. I do want it for residents only and the Hyatt. Bonita Bay does this. They have a beach. They have a restaurant. They have a greeter there. Make sure that the people that come in there are authorized to be there. I implore that you keep our island in the manner of Barefoot Beach. No rentals of jet skis from there. And yes, it was from All Water Sports. And the guy called Hyatt and said, hey, I'm out here at the beach. Come bring me a jet ski. He said, okay, sir, we'll do it. That's commercialization. We don't want that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, please. No applause, please.
Good morning,
Good
gentlemen.
morning. Your name, please.
My name is Ann Kramer, and I've been a resident of Pelican Landing since 2002.
Okay, and just to make sure everybody that's in line has filled out the form in which to speak. Thank you. Go ahead.
There's a couple of issues that I'd like to address, but I'd just like to back up for a minute and say that although the Board of Directors may have voted unanimously for this, they did not come to the residents and discuss the 4 COP license, which is a full liquor license, nor did they discuss music with the residents, and I think that's very important. The 2 concerns I'd like to address overlap. The first topic has to do with condition number 8, which Mr. Luce already spoke to briefly, which basically ties the PLCA in with the Hyatt in this food and beverage deal. And it also indicates, there's a word in here, it says that the Pelican Landing Association and its partnership with the Hyatt. Although Hyatt is a member of the association, it seems important to state that there is no known partnership between the Hyatt and PLCA, at least nothing known by the residents. And I was very surprised in reading through the application and the staff report. The staff report, in multiple occasions, references what the Hyatt wants. The Hyatt wants this, the Hyatt wants that. And perhaps they were influenced by a misconception that there actually is a partnership whereby the fact of the matter is, as Mr. Hart mentioned earlier, the Hyatt is a member. They are not in partnership. If allowed, this condition, number 8, inextricably requires that Pelican Landing grant Hyatt the exclusive right to provide food and beverages, non-alcoholic and alcoholic, and music, or lose the special zoning exception. So if granted, this provision also appears to prevent the special exception from running with the land. Even if an agreement existed between the Hyatt and PLCA right now for food service, which we don't understand that there is anything that's signed at this point, it seems onerous to put this restriction in place upon a property owner for no apparent reason other than to guarantee exclusive for-profit commercial rights to the Hyatt. And then the second issue I'd like to bring up has to do with the central, it's the issue of commercialization as it relates to the comprehensive plan considerations. The staff report states the following. It says, the central question to this request is whether the provision of concessions at a private recreation facility constitutes increased commercialization. And to that, I would just like to say, the supporting staff refers to other beach parks along Hickory Boulevard. However, as Ms. McVeigh said, the Pelican Landing Beach Park fundamentally is different and perhaps better compared to Barefoot Beach. It is not simply a property that consists of several acres of land, a clubhouse, and a parking lot located on a public beach, with also, by the way, public sewers and public water. We have a very different situation here. This beach park on Hickory Island is zoned agricultural. It only has a septic system. It only has a well that produces non-potable water. And Pelican Landing, at this point in our documents, we're required to maintain it in its natural state. There's conservation easements over most of it. The beach park is also quantifiably different in that it serves not only residents, but somewhere in the neighborhood of approximately 50% of the beach usage comes from the Hyatt, which is a for-profit commercial entity. So until this special zoning request surfaced, Hyatt, as far as I know, had not commercially sold anything at the beach park, and their participation has always been very cooperative. The current nature of this beach park should remain, in my opinion, as such, and not become a commercial enterprise with an island-styled restaurant with island-style drinks. And what seems to be surfacing recently is having some motorized water sport equipment rented from the island, which is separate from this issue. But I think it's an indication of compliance with the rules. Our documents clearly state that that is not supposed to happen. So what will happen with the advent of adding these other things, including music? Who would enforce that? There are noise regulations, I understand, in Bonita Springs, but I also understand that those are being rewritten right now because there's difficulty enforcing them in the manner they're currently written. So in light of the information that I've brought forward and other speakers have, I would express my concern regarding Condition 8. I think it's wholly inappropriate to tie an entity's hand, and Pelican Landing is the applicant. Hyatt is not the applicant. And I'm not saying that I'm for all of this. Maybe limited food service and beverages would be fine. I'm very much against the COP, the 4 COP license. I think that is wholly inappropriate. And I thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much this morning. Next, please. And please state your name for the record.
Hello, my name is Peter Kane. I'm a resident of Bonita Springs and Pelican Landing, and I'm the neighborhood representative for the neighborhood of Bay Cedar, which has 66 residents in our neighborhood, and we're elected every year at our annual meeting, and therefore I attend what was described as a unit owners committee meeting, which is a monthly meeting. At that meeting, several months ago, they approached us from the board to get the feedback from our community as to whether or not we wanted cart service on the island to serve food to our guests, ourselves and the Hyatt guests. And just that serving the cart, which was going to include soda and water only, no mention of beer or wine was made, and that discussion was had at our meeting. Still, yet a third of the residents' representatives thought that was a bad idea. They didn't like that. However, the other 2/3, including myself, said, "Let's try it out. We can do that, and see if the most debate against it centered around the trash being hauled on the island. The way Mr. Hart described it, we think the exact opposite is going to occur. What happens now is people go over with their own coolers, and they go with their food, and they come back with everything. They don't leave anything on the beach. Now, what we have is the possibility with just a food cart that people will send their kids over to get some ice cream or get some sandwiches and bring it back, and let's all eat it over here because we have other things over here. There's not going to be a monitor that's going to stop children from running back and forth picking up food from the food cart. However, as the months ensued, more rumors came about and more information became available that they were now looking at getting alcohol, mostly saying just beer and just wine. Well, the opposition increased, and then the questions began increasing. What's happening? What's going on? Well, the board never came back and never spoke to us. And as you can see from Mr. Hart's testimony, the idea of live music and hard liquor was an afterthought of Mr. Hart's at the last minute. And that from his own definition, you should know that most of the community was never informed of any of this. Most of the opposition to this whole plan by the community has to do with the fact that we were not approached with this wonderful presentation at the community to show us how all of these different aspects of the island are going to be taken care of. Now, the people that are in opposition to this could still be convinced that it might be a good idea, but then they might not. The board never approached us and never came to us with any information. In fact, the idea of having this meeting was discovered by accident because somebody went to the island and found the signage on the island. All of the plans and who is in charge and everything that was happening has not been finalized. I think this has been managed in a very poor way, and our unelected, as the other gentleman described, board of directors seems to have taken this all in on themselves and kept it actually secret from the people in the community because they know that there would be a lot of opposition and a lot of questions. What's the liability like? All the typical questions a community would have. So you should know that there is significant opposition among the residents who are full-time Bonita residents against this plan, mostly because of Mr. Hart's latest edition of hard liquor and live music. And the second thing, and the final thing that I would like to say, is it is quite possible that the filing itself is not legally done. The people have said that there was a board vote. In fact, Mr. Murphy actually said the board was unanimous. There was no board vote on this. There was no board vote in any minute of any board meeting that has been posted. There was no board mention of this in the April minutes. There was no mention of any filing done in the May minutes. Of course, you know the filing was done on May 29th. Miss Martell, at the UOC meeting, 6 days after the filing, was asked, what is the latest progress on the liquor filings? And she did not reveal to us at that time that she knew very well that this filing had been made. So she kept this information from the people deliberately so that this could possibly get over here, you could approve whatever they wanted, and suddenly it would be a fait accompli. So the fact that the board has come here and has instructed Mr. Hart to file without a board resolution that is in any minute, I think makes this filing not legal. Now, I'm sure that Mr. Murphy is the only board member to have discussed this with him, because I'm afraid that if another board member discussed this with him, that would be a violation of the sunshine laws of our wonderful state of Florida. And I'm sure that that did not occur. I sure hope it did not occur. With all of this poor planning and poor management by the board, you should realize that the whole operation will be poorly managed. And if you allow alcohol out there, it would be a travesty. One of my neighbors revealed to me that she was shocked to find out that 2 of her 20-something sons have already figured out how to get free alcohol on the beach, because they have Pelican Landing IDs. And just as you gentlemen were told by the VFW veterans before, he said only VFW veterans can buy the drinks. So if they bring guests, they have to buy the drinks and bring them to their guests. Well, they figured that out already, these 20-somethings, and they figured that they're going to get free drinks from the boaters who are going to show up and hear the music. Any of you guys want some liquor? I'll buy it for you as long as you buy mine. So there are holes in this plan. Things haven't been thought through, and I think it's very dangerous to allow this to go through with so many afterthoughts and last-minute ideas from Mr. Hart that, that we should hold this off. We should send it back, have them discuss it with us in the community, and we'll come up with a plan that we all really want and come back to you with something that we're all behind. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, please. How many more, is everybody in line here, just the 2 of you? Okay. Well,
Oh, jeez.
wait a minute. All right. At this time, I'm going to ask for a 10-minute recess because we have a cameraman back here that needs to we need to take a break for 10 minutes. So, not just him, all of us. And also at this at the end of the recess, I'm going to adjourn. I'm going to excuse myself. Mr. Donnelly will take over because I have a